Welcome back, everybody, to the Big East Rewind. I am your host from Villanova University, Chuck Everson, and my co-host, as always, my point guard, my main man, the man with the fresh haircut today, Sonny Sparrow from Syracuse University. How are you, Sonny?
I'm good, Chuck. I haircut yesterday. I shaved today. I'm feeling
good,
pretty
man.
spiffy, man.
You'd think you're on TV or something, Sonny.
Something. Yeah, I got makeup
good.
might help get rid of these bags, but other than that, it's good.
Oh, listen, we got to get you in the makeup chair. You know, some of us, we look good. I'm not that person, but some of us do. Just not me. Anyway, so Sonny, this is our starting a whole new century. This is our 101st show. And I thought it would be a great idea for us to take a look back at 100 shows that we've done and talk about our finest moment, our not so finest moments, and everything in between. So with that said, talk about what, first of all, tell us about what you think through this whole ride and what it's meant to you, as a former player in the conference.
Well, I was never great in the history department, although as I got older, I find myself more interested in history, at least, world history, U.S. history when I go places and stuff. But, as a player, right, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get on the court. You're trying to get some minutes. You're trying to help your team win, right?
Especially the two of us, Sonny.
Right. But that's
the way it is.
But that's kind of where it ends, right? Now you got, you got the dynamics of it. And, the perfect example is, okay, Georgetown, they were shut off from the rest of the league, right? So we hated them. Everybody hated them. Everybody had fights with them. And you had a persona there. But in essence, once you peel back some of the layers, what you find is really deep down, honest to goodness, wonderfully warm, sensitive, intelligent, great brothers, great friends, great, I'm going to call them teammates, but combatants, we'll call them, I guess would be fair to call the Big East, but folks that you share blood with, you know what I mean? And that's been a lot of fun. And that's been the most rewarding thing, is making new friends, new relationships. Some people completely outside of the lines, like, John Fanta, who knows what we were going to get into when we talked to the Human Tornado, and now like BFFs, I mean, it's like we're tight. We could talk to John, and his star has risen, faster than anybody I know. And Dave Gavitt's son, Dan Gavitt, Val Ackerman, one of the most impressive women I've ever listened to speak, and completely unaware of that. I think she's just so humble, but so together in every aspect. Like, I just am impressed. And then we heard her at Media Day. I'm just in awe of every time she does something. You could tell it's well thought out. It's not corny. It's sincere. And she's driving the ship. And, the Big East, the new Big East, there was a lot of challenges. So, Syracuse left the Big East, which I never liked. I still to this day don't like it. I understand why. It's flat out money, and it was football, and I get it. TV revenue, but boy, oh boy, what could have been, And when UConn comes back to the conference, sure they are. Second year they win the national championship. It's like old times, and that original core, that St. John's, that Providence, that Seton Hall, the Villanovas, this, well, not Syracuse, but like that was the original crew.
Yeah.
And they're still tight, and I just want to see Syracuse back in there. So it's been fun. And I'm going to go back to our first episode. We reach out to the granddaddy of them all, Coach Raftery, right? Bill Raftery. And everybody knows Raf. Just immediately you mention his name, everybody smiles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a universal language of love with Coach Raff. And he was a great guest. I mean, he was sitting at his kitchen table. He was half on the screen, half off. I mean, we were trying to work out Zoom for the first time. Like,
we had three hosts, if you remember. Daryl was hosting with us, and he asked one question. He kind of poked his head and asked the question and got out. That's when he decided he'd stay behind the camera.
Yeah. But, I mean, what a great way to kick off the show. And then from there, it just gets rolling. And then I think, it's like word of mouth. You get a Charles Smith on, and then, then Joey David. And then, then you get some of the other guys from Pittsburgh, guys that we didn't know that well. And now we do, like you could call up Clive or Andre, some of these other guys. And it's just, Jason Matthews. I mean, I might go to Tampa. I'm going to see Jason.
The most fun about it to me is the relationships that we've built with guys that we played against that we really didn't know.
Exactly.
You mentioned Pittsburgh. Keith Armstrong.
Keith
and I beat the crap out of each other for 4 years, and I've never said a word to him until we got him on the show and found out what a great guy he is. He was in law enforcement. He's a gentleman. He's a
fantastic
really good guy. And you know what I'm finding out too, Sonny, and this is, we're not about any negativity, so we don't dig for dirt like some of these sports shows do, where everybody's yelling at each other. And
it's not TMZ, man.
It's not, it's not that stuff. It's nostalgic. It's fun. And once the guys realize and recognize that it's not going to be any kind of hardcore driving for, answers, they lighten up and they talk about stuff that the average Joe fan never even knew existed, never happened, never knew. So
it takes a while to get them to that comfortable point, right? So the initial part of the show is always, it's not rocky, but it's feeling your way, right?
Yeah.
And then once you hit the groove and the person lets their hair down, so to speak, it's a conversation of a bunch of guys, typically I'll say sitting over at at Rolly's house, a big bowl of pasta and everybody's eating. You might want to have it at a bar having a beer. It's not my cup of tea, but it's in that social setting that you get to discuss.
And everybody's come back to us, Sonny, and just said what a great time they had. Who would be good? Let me call this guy, or let me call that guy for you. Let me help you with this or that. And those are the things that we appreciate, because that means we did our job. Those guys are happy. We're happy, and we get to do more shows because we have more guests that come on. This is only the second show in 101 where we've had no guests to talk to. It's just the two of us. And, so it's one of those things that, you become pleasantly surprised, and some of the things, like I'll tell you, a couple of shows that strike me at that you found out stuff that you really didn't know. All right. Keith Smart and Howard Trish.
Yeah, that was a good
87 championship game. Well, Howard was guarding Keith at that when Keith made that shot at the end of the game. Had no idea how Keith got that wide open, and had no idea what transpired at halftime to make Keith come out and play his fanny off, in the second half. And as we find out, the late, great Bobby Knight basically threatened his playing career. That tends to make you run faster and jump higher.
Tell people this story. Not many people know about this story. Coach called me to go back in the game. And he said, "You ready to go back in?" I said, yes. And he's talking to me before I went to the scores table. He said, "Look, I'm giving you 2 minutes to go in the game and do something. If you haven't done anything in 2 minutes, I'm going to take you out the game. And if I take you out the game again, you're probably not going to play anymore. And if I don't play you, I'm probably not going to play you next year." And so I'm like,
wow. No pressure though, Keith.
Everybody thought I was playing for a national championship. No, man, I was playing for my scholarship.
Holy cow.
Come back to school next year,
Interesting. The other one was, talking with Gene Smith, and I think Billy was on with him, Billy Martin.
Yeah, Billy Martin, yeah.
And
he had that haircut.
Yeah, and listening to these guys, having to drive out to Rye, New York to play in the Big East tournament and go, and they're justifying it based on, well, that's what we did at school anyway. So it really wasn't that big a deal. And to find out that they got Patrick Ewing stuffed into a school bus, a yellow
school bus.
Are you kidding me?
School bus.
And the guy came out and played, I know what it's like at 7 foot to sit in a yellow school bus. You got no room at all. The guy gets out and he's dunking on everybody, runs like a deer, he jumps over the building, And then the other show that I really found very interesting to me, because I was part of it, was the show when we talked about the 1985 Final Four.
Oh yeah,
where we
the three teams.
had Billy Winnington and Ronnie
Billy
Stewart,
and Ron,
St. John's. We had Horace and Billy from Georgetown, and we had the two Harolds, Harold Presley and Harold Jensen, and you can count me in that.
Yes, it was.
And the stories that went into that as to, you know, how different coaches handled the Final Four. You know, Coach Mass let us be kids. We were able to go out and experience it all to some degree. We had the reins on us as to where we had to be and when we had to be there, and you better have been there, because
got to pet Seattle Slew, didn't you?
Trouble. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're at the horse farm and we're hanging out with Seattle Slew, Allie Dar, and Affirm, three of the greatest racehorses ever to race. You know, and I think we told the story. It was funny because
and Georgetown was staying where? They were staying in Oklahoma City, right?
Louisville. They were in Louisville.
You sure they weren't like Oklahoma City or Tulsa?
Yeah,
or something?
it's crazy, you know. But we go to the horse farm and Seattle Slew comes out, and the horse starts getting excited like it's going into the breeding shed. Everybody was like, "Whoa, what the hell?" So the trainer goes, "Hey, who's jingling change? This horse only gets excited for money. Who's jingling change? Stop jingling the change." So yeah, but I mean, those types of things. Who was name a couple of your favorite guests, Sonny?
Well, I thought the Pat Ewing show was great. Other than Chuck, who was the toughest big guy you faced?
Ralph Dalton.
Smart answer. Because it took forever and a day to get him. We were on a super tight window, and his persona. When's the last time somebody said, "Oh yeah, I remember Pat Ewing smiling and laughing," and he was basically almost giddy the entire show, and was just himself, right? Like again, somebody, just humans being humans and brothers being brothers. I mean, it was just great. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Well, that's what we do, Sonny, to people, you know.
Yeah,
he's especially cracked up, you know. And listen, what people don't know is there's no rhyme or reason to what we do, even though we are professional journalists, and that is true. Okay. However, we don't have questions written down as to what we're going to ask Patrick Ewing or anybody else that has been on the show. We'll put topics that we may want to hit. And when you're on one of these calls, and many of you know now through COVID, when you've been on a Zoom call or whatever, Google, whatever, you can type to somebody else in the room and the rest of the room can't see what you're typing. So at that point, you know, with Patrick, I typed over to Sonny, other than me, who was the toughest player he had to play against. And Sonny cracks up, he's laughing. And then Patrick just blew up laughing, which was perfect. That was great. That's exactly what we wanted. That was exactly
great. Well,
you know?
well, let's take the show we just shot, the 100th episode, right? Our plan, our strategy, our pregame was, listen, we'll get these three guys back together and we'll let them cook. We'll be the subject. They'll ask us questions, right? They'll say, what's your favorite episode? And guess what? They just got going on stories, and it was literally like a total reunion show. And I was just happy to be a fly on the wall. You know,
I think all I said was we have to break for a commercial break, and that might have been it. And that's why we're doing this show as the 101st show. Because
I do remember a message saying, "Hey Chuck, ask the next question." You're like, "If I can get it in."
It was wild. I mean, listen, that show, that the one that we just did with those three guys was special because they hadn't been together in a long time, where the three of them were in the same quote unquote room, you know. So it was nice to see that. And you know, Sean got emotional.
Yep.
You know, when he was talking, and they said a lot of nice things about each other, and you could tell.
It only took about 100 text messages.
Yeah. Well, that's what it takes sometimes, Sonny. You know, now you know. That was I have to give credit where credit's due. That was all Sonny. Normally the guests are
it's all Chuck.
I court the guests and chase guys down, and Sonny kept asking me, what do you think? What I said, I think you better start picking up the phone and calling because they're not answering the text. So you got to go to the next step. And he made it happen. So that was great.
Chuck, another show, I got to mention it. It to me, now I played for Coach Boeheim for 4 years, known him a long time.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful guy, but he's complicated, right? He has a exterior, but he has this interior, and he is a phenomenal public speaker. He really is. But when we interviewed him, he was as chilled and relaxed and just downright cozy having a conversation. I've never seen that side of him. I really haven't. And again, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of joke. He has one of the best sense of humors on the planet. So it was another show that I'll remember for forever. It was a enjoyable moment to share, and he gave you a couple ribs. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, and as it should. And speaking of ribs, let's get into it right now. My main man, Len Berman. Okay, listen, Len Berman. Okay, in my house when I was a kid, he was the guy in New York that was live at 5, spanning the world, right? Yep. Live at 5, and he was on with Chuck Scarborough, Sue Simmons, and Al Roker. Okay, that was the crew, and we, every night at 5 o'clock, the news was on in our house. Right before dinner, we'd watch the news and then go. And so I watched Len Berman for forever, and then he was one of the original voices of the Big East Conference. So we said, let's see if we can get him. And he answered a direct text and came on right away and immediately jumped all over me about how to pronounce the word Syracuse, which I have never mispronounced again, by the way, Sonny. and he told a few stories that he also told on another popular show, the Howard Stern Show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And about fire hoses, and it was it was wild.
I have 2 sons who weren't big sports fans. They're still not, but now they're grown and they do other things. But I would take each kid to a different game. So I remember taking one of my sons to a game in Pittsburgh, and I took one of my kid when he was 9 years old. My son Daniel, who's now an attorney, I took him to a Georgetown game at Landover, Maryland.
Yep.
The game's over, and I'm standing outside with Raftery because we weren't allowed in the locker room. We weren't allowed to speak to the players at Georgetown, basically. Yep. So I remember standing outside the locker room, and John Thompson walks over and grabs my son's hand and says, "You want to come in the locker room?" And I'm pissed. I wanted to go to the locker room. I never got to talk to any of the Georgetown players. Anyway, so he takes my son, 9 years old, comes out of the locker room, and his eyes are the size of saucers. And he says, "Daddy, they have penises the size of fire hoses." And I remember being upset on so many levels. I mean, sure, thanks, Thompson, for knocking me down another peg in my son's eyes. But anyway.
I didn't know what to say, Sonny, when he said that. I almost fell off the chair.
You know what else, Chuck? I mean, look at the list of coaches. I mean, we had Jay Wright, Mike Fratello, Pete Gillen, PJ Carlissimo, Gary Williams,
Jim Calhoun,
Boeheim, Kyle Neptune, and the creme de la creme was the actual live come in my kitchen interview with Lou Carnesecca, which you get invited to an Italian's kitchen. You just bring the pastries. That's all.
You're doing something right.
Or you bring a bottle of wine. You just show up and you just enjoy the moment.
Well, not only that, but we some people that know us personally know this, but we went and we spent about 45 minutes filming the show in Coach Lou's kitchen. Mm-hmm. We then, afterwards, we spent another 15 minutes or so on campus doing the intro and outro to the show in front of his statue in the sweater. Mm-hmm. But in between that time, we spent an hour and a half listening to him tell us stories that were incredible. Including my favorite one that he told, that day was, he said they had a guy, Buck Johnson, on his team. It was his best player. He goes, "You probably never heard of him, but he was our best player." okay, coach, we're playing Pete Maravich. He averages over 50 points a game. So we said, how are we going to stop Pete Maravich? And he said to Buck in the locker room before they walked out, I got it. I said, okay. He goes, we're not even going to pay attention to him. Make believe you don't even care who he is. Soon as he gets the ball, turn your back on him and walk away. I said, turn your back on him? He goes, yeah, like he don't mean nothing. Just turn your back on him. So Buck goes, are you sure? He goes, yes, I'm sure. And I'm looking at him too like he's crazy.
He's crazy.
So he comes back in at halftime. Pete's only got 8 points. He goes, the strategy is working. He don't know what to do. We're going to keep doing it. And then he stopped the story. And I looked at him, you remember? And I looked at him and I go, Coach, how did it end? What happened? He goes, he made an adjustment. He had 55 points. We lost by 40. Oh my God. So just listening to him tell that, I was dying when he.
Yeah.
And then we took him to lunch.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks after that, we went and just hung out with him.
He told
Oh,
stories about World War II, being drafted, being in the South Pacific, and
the 82nd Airborne. He was driving back at Okinawa, and all of a sudden the war was over. So he said he didn't have to fire a shot. So
and he named the first team he ever coached at I forget that school.
Yeah, but against Jim Valvano's dad.
And just a absolute treasure, a national treasure. And we got close, spent time with him, and I'll never ever forget those moments. Those were great. I also the show that we did that was about Pearl.
I'm just going to mention that. Yep.
Yeah, I just remember that.
That's our highest viewed show, by the way, by a lot.
Yeah, and that's like anytime Pearl's name is mentioned and you talk about it and people talk about it, and Kenny Smith still talks about him on the NBA show and stuff like that. And it's just it's a tough one because I was there, I was with him. Some of the things I knew, some of the things I didn't know. And to see a guy like that, so over the top, magnetic, charisma, dynamic personality, but yet deep down, just a humble, private, reserved, wonderful person. Just talked to one of the cheerleaders, and she talked about him in a similar way, and it was like I had no idea that she had that insight into him or that dealings with Pearl on those levels, and it was pretty spectacular. I mean, that was an emotional show, but it was handled very well. It was done very, very well by the people we had with him.
We had his
teammate
on, his high school coach, his running mate, his backcourt partner, and Wendell.
Yep.
It was really cool. And we did another tribute show too. Was Coach Massimino. We had R.C. Mass and Brian Harrington on talking about Coach Mass, which was great too. I mean, all those memories come rushing back.
I'll tell you, when RC's talking and I'm listening to him and I'm looking at him,
he looks just like him now.
Oh, it was deja vu. I was like, oh my God, take a few more hair follicles out. That's I'm looking at Rolly,
Yeah.
And you close your eyes, you're listening to him. That was eerie for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm around him for forever, and so it's not so much for me, but I understand where you're coming from for sure.
So parallel and dynamically everything, mannerisms that I know. I mean, much better, but I mean, it was pretty intense because Rolly came up and spoke at our Hardwood Club dinner, and he was priceless and absolutely hysterical, and he and Boeheim went back and forth. It was one of the funniest unplanned comedy shows.
Yeah,
I mean, it was hysterical. Both guys were going at it. Hey, Jim, I think you were the poster boy for whiskey sours. I mean, I was like, where do you come up with that? And I remember Andre and I going, did you hear what he just said? It was so funny.
He was good. Another show that I really, really enjoyed because I was involved with this as well was having Reggie come on, And so people ask me, all the time, if people of a certain age now, Sonny, they want to know how tall are you?
That's polite. Yep.
And you tell them, And then you tell them, did you play basketball? Yeah. Where did you play? And when I say Villanova, they ask, were you on that team? And then they said, yeah, that was the game that guy got hit in the face at halftime. I said, that's me, and so, it's been 30 something years of milking that story. 3 minutes of game time I've milked for 39 years. I think that's pretty good. So Reggie comes on the show, and the way, I don't know if you know this, how we got him. Reggie called Gene Smith and said, hey, I really like what Chuck and Sonny are doing. I want to come on the show. Do you think they'll have me on? And Gene contacted me, and lo and behold, we had him on, and we had to inevitably ask the question, what he thought. And so we talked it out. And ever since then, Sonny, I talk with Reggie Williams probably every 10 days to 2 weeks, maybe. I'm not that I'm counting, but I've been out with him socially, him and his wife and my wife. We went and had lunch together. We've gone to football games and tailgated together. We talk about, stuff. Anytime I get anywhere near him, he actually, Sonny, and you know this, he actually went to a Villanova game on Villanova's campus with me, and we sat right behind the bench. So it was, it's been a lot of fun getting to know him and seeing what a great guy is. And in fact, a spoiler alert, Sonny, right now, we are going to have Reggie back on the show with some of his Dunbar High School teammates and Coach Wade to talk about that fantastic high school team, maybe one of the best high school teams ever. That Dunbar High School team with Reggie,
legendary,
and Muggsy Bogues and Reggie and Herm Hareed and all the guys that played on that team. That was a legendary high school team. So, and there was 4 pros came off that team. Okay. And there was no transfers like in some of these schools recruit kids. They all lived in the same neighborhood, which was incredible. So we're going to have that in a not too distant future. Hopefully. We're trying to put that together now. I spoke to Reggie about it, and he's all in about it. So what are some of your biggest takeaways from doing the show that you didn't know before?
Oh, there's so many. So many. I really didn't know. I didn't know some of the things that Georgetown did. Talked about like the lessons and the things they talked about on and off the court.
Yeah.
You had
social issues, right, Sonny?
Yeah. I mean, you had a thought that John Thompson thinks on a different level. And again, his persona was, was intimidation on the sidelines. It was intimidation in the paper and us versus them. And it was about winning basketball games for them. I get it. But some of the other things which he talked about, and I remember Gene Smith talking about he wanted you to be a proud black man and, grow up to be what you should be and go to class and graduate. And these guys all reflect that in some way or another because they're all successful in their lives and they're all, to me, very well adjusted and super easy to talk to. So that's one aspect. I think some of the other things that when we talked to Glenn with the St. John's Redmond, and he talked about some of the things that went on, when he was working at the Dairy Queen and some of his stories, that was kind of interesting. Gary Williams and what he had to do at Boston College, and kind of why he left. I get it. At the time, I thought it was abrupt and quick, and he really had built a great program, and he took what Tom Davis did and just put it on steroids. That place blew up, and the players and and they got a lot out of what they had, and put Boston College. And they were a bucket away from being the 4th Big East team in the '85 Final Four. So let's not forget that. That was another thing. Charles Smith, when he talked about,
Charles Smith was incredible.
He was an incredible guest. I mean, I could have shut the tape off and listened to him talk for hours, like hours and hours. And some of the things that he did in the pros and his own agent, and he arranged it. He was part of those trips to North Korea. And I mean, it's just
Crazy.
yeah, I just can't, I just can't even fathom it, let alone
He's an entrepreneur's entrepreneur, Sonny.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
right.
Really has done a fantastic job with his life and
Yeah. And Mike Tranghese talking about when the phone call came, go get Dave, get him out of the meeting. Dave, I got Patrick. Boom, we're going to the Garden. Set it up. Just how the Big East was born.
Yeah.
Out of just really one guy's vision, and pretty cool.
Speaking of that, the older guys that we've had on were awesome too. I mean, I'm thinking of 3 off the top of my head: John Pannone, Danny Calandrello, and your boy from Syracuse, Danny Shays.
Danny Shays was hysterical.
Danny Shays, let me tell you something.
Hey, Chuck,
this
is not for you.
Right. First thing he says is, Sonny, you'll appreciate this. You're smart. And he looks deadpan right at me in the camera. Sonny. So what the?
And I picked up on it right away. I was dying.
If we were in the same room, it would have been we were back on the court. I tell you that right now, Sonny. And then to find out the guy's a smart guy. He's no dummy, okay? But he's taking dance classes. What the hell is he doing? We even showed game film from his dance class. So I mean, and then of course, 2 of the most requested guests that we've had, and then no kidding around, was the captain of my freshman team, John Pannone, and Danny Calandrello. And both didn't disappoint. Both guys were terrific. Danny, I spoke with Danny the other day, actually, and we're supposed to hook up for lunch coming up soon in New Jersey. And so I'm looking forward to hooking up with Danny, and didn't know much about him other than he was one of the most elusive people that we've ever tried to recruit to come on the show.
But I mean, both his parents were deaf. I mean, he had 9, 10 brothers and sisters. Yeah, I mean, it's just in a little 2-bedroom apartment, and I mean, it's just an incredible journey that most everyone has had. And how did those things intersect? And the commonality is basketball, really.
Yeah. And John Pannone, you're talking about, I started laughing because you're talking about the scouting report. You see this nice little Catholic boy with the hair parted on the side, and bam, he hits you. I said, you're nice and sweet. So you didn't catch it in the show, but John goes, yeah, nice. So I said, oh, no, he's a real sweetheart off the court. He's a real sweetheart. So, I mean, yeah, John is great, and I learned a lot from John, and we appreciate both those guys coming out and
he was so forthright. Like
John, that's how he is, man. He's no BS.
No BS. He told it like it is, and he just said that I'm not going to be successful unless I'm playing, balls to the wall, basically. Just I get that, and it's funny to hear someone say that because, again, scouting reports are scouting reports, right? And you have a picture of a player, but you don't know that guy that well.
So let me ask you a question, okay? Because we've done 100. This is 101. And in 101 shows, I've introduced you probably 95 ways. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's really accurate. Probably an understatement.
I had to get a thesaurus that I could find more S words to S adjectives to.
Yeah, some of them were stretching.
What were some of your what were some of the better ones that you liked that the way we introduced you?
Oh my God. When you started going on the Cape Crusader of cavities and you
Root Canal Royalty.
Root Canal Royalty. We borrowed that from our BFF.
No, that I gave it to the BFF.
That was you? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't credit it right. I'm sorry.
Credit.
That was great stuff. Oh my goodness.
How about when I
Sonny
spoke the soulful sounds of Marvin Gaye and we played the Sonny song?
Yes,
with Gene Smith. We played, And
Yes,
Gene
you did.
wouldn't sing with me, but
Yes,
we
you
did have
did.
Marvin Gaye sing the
Yeah,
song.
you even had the cheerleaders do a cheer. I'm like,
We had the cheerleaders do a cheer. I also introduced you as the only dentist on the planet
right.
to hold Michael Jordan scoreless in a game,
That's right.
even though they were in four corners, and
Somebody had to do it, so might as
he
well
didn't
be
shoot
me.
the ball.
Might as well be me.
Yeah,
I have a picture to prove it. Michael's got his hands on his shorts. He's gassed.
He's gassed.
I'm fresh. I'm
well,
in
that's
denial.
because you were just starting to get into the sweet air thing at that time. That's why he was gassed.
I think I just came in the game.
Right. And it's funny how it all comes around full circle, right? I mean, I go on my visit to Syracuse not knowing, who I'm going to meet, where I'm going to, and I wind up staying with him. And the next thing you know, we're fast friends, and not in touch the entire time, but our daughters played against each other. We were actually going to coach against each other, and next thing you know, we're having breakfast at the diner, our girls and us, and and there we are doing a show, and and it's been a lot of fun, and you could tell when people come up to me. Especially when we're together, Sonny. When people come up to me and tell us what kind of chemistry we have together and how good it is and how much they enjoy it, it means a lot. And
it does.
And it's been enjoyable getting to know you and your family better. And we got big things coming up in the month of December with the Spira family, and looking forward to all of those things as well. So it's been a fun ride, and I just think that some of the stuff that people don't know that goes on is the behind the scenes between Daryl and me and Nick and Sonny going back and forth on text messages, and some of the funny stuff that goes on, some of the courting of some of these athletes, players,
some of the outtakes from the show.
Wow, some of the outtakes are pretty good. The media guys I think are easier to interview because they don't get to talk much. So all you have to do is say, let me ask you, and they just go,
roll tape.
Roll tape. Some guys, it's tough. It's some guys are very tough. And fortunately, we really didn't have a whole lot of very difficult guys. There was a couple. It wasn't you don't know what you're going to get until you get into it and somebody opens up. I mean, the other guys that had a great personality too was Chris Smith and John Gwynn from
dynamic personalities.
Those guys are real good buddies, and
funny too, man.
They were excellent.
There's some funny guys.
But and the other thing is, when we're doing these things and chasing people down, to get Patrick Ewing was an act of Congress, pretty much, right? I mean, we had it was going to be 45 minutes, and then the person that's his press person that we dealt with said, well, Patrick can do it right now. I said, well, listen, I don't know if you understand. Sonny is a dentist. He's not going to tell his patients, hey, just suck on this thing, for a little bit, and I'll be back in an hour when I get done interviewing Patrick Ewing. That's not happening. So that's not how Sonny rolls. And so we got a full 12 minutes with Patrick. Full 12 minutes, Sonny.
Well, truth be told, Chuck got 12 minutes. And while we're on the show, Chuck is getting text messages from the person. You got 5 minutes. And Chuck's telling me, I go, nah, don't even pay attention. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And she's like, she's going to take my head off.
Yeah. She was counting it down for real. I said, because I had told Sonny before the show, I said, we're going to make Pat tap out. He's going to have to tell me that he's got to go.
Right. That was the strategy. I was sticking to it.
That was the strategy. And Sonny was sticking to it, and I was getting tortured, And now, lo and behold, we're trying to get Coach Cooley.
That's right.
And our good friend, I should have torched her, because our good friend, right, the same person, has not returned a call, even though at Media Day, Coach Cooley shook my hand, told me he loved the show, he's seen a bunch of them, and wants to come on, set it up with that person, and pointed right at her, and I got nothing. But that doesn't mean we stop trying, So now that we've been through Media Day, we have some connections with some of the current day kids and coaches, and looking forward to maybe getting Shaka on and Danny Hurley and Sean Miller.
Yep.
And Ed Cooley and we will have to. This is gonna. I may have to invoke our Pope of St. John's privileges and have Louis ask Coach Pitino to do it for us, because I think if Louis asked them, I think he had no choice but to say yes. What do you think of that, Sonny?
I think we'll take it as we can get it, right? And
I got the blessing. I got the blessing from Louis. You know that he did. Yeah, I said to him, it's funny because he said, I'll tell you one story about Louis, and then we'll wrap it up. So he said to us, he goes, I want to thank you guys for getting me out of jail when we were at the house. Remember this, Sonny? I said, out of jail? He goes, yeah. He goes, I live with 4 women. My poor wife's got Alzheimer's. She doesn't even know who I am. It's very sad. And she's got a housekeeper. So they're away. I got a girl that speaks Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. She's out. I got a Polish girl. She don't speak English. I don't speak Polish. Okay. But I want to get you guys a cup of coffee and a piece of cake because you're in my house. And that's an Italian thing. My Italian friend right in front of me here will tell you. So
get the panettone. How many times did he say
right,
get the panettone?
Right. I was waiting for him to break out the prosciutto. So anyway, so he says, Berta, where's the coffee? Where's the coffee? And he can't find the Polish lady. He looks at me deadpan, looks right at me and goes, what, did she defect? She defect? She go back to Poland? So I said, Coach, it's okay, So
I remember that because
get him the coffee. I don't want him talking about me. Get him the coffee.
I remember that. I almost fell out of my chair because he was talking to you and I heard it. I was like, he didn't just say that, did he?
Oh, so he says, I get him the coffee. So I get the coffee, I take a sip, and I say, hey, now we can't talk about it. And he looks at me and he goes, well, that's not going to do anything for your intelligence, is it, Chuck? And I look at Reno and Ron Guzis and go, what the hell? So they go, Chuck. I go, relax. I know what this means. And Louis laughing and he's shaking his head. I go, that means I'm down with the St. John's crew now. Now all I need is the blessing of the Pope of St. John's. And he fist bumps me. I put my head down and he goes this.
There you go.
And he goes, here's your penance. I said, yeah, what's that, Coach? Don't ever come in my house with a Villanova shirt on.
Don't ever come in my house
with a Villanova shirt on. He goes, and you too with the Syracuse shirt.
So when we went back, we stopped at the bookstore. I bought a St. John's t-shirt.
I had a hat.
You had a hat.
It looked like a yarmulke on my head. It was so small. But yeah, it was great. So this has been a wonderful, wonderful experience for Sonny and I. And we didn't really, the bond that is there between guys that have played in the conference. And I don't think it really matters when you've played. As long as you've been through it, it's a real strong bond. The only thing that's different was the color of the shirt that you wore, color of your jersey. That's it.
How many times have you said though, when the ball stops bouncing, right?
Yeah, right. And that's what it's. Listen,
true story.
Here's the thing, like you say, eventually we're all going to have to stop playing the game. The ball stops bouncing, but the locker room never has to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what this is all about in a nutshell, right, Sonny?
Yeah, I can't say it any better than that. That's it.
The locker room has not stopped. So once again, thank you very, very much to everybody who has supported us and who has listened to the shows, who has come up to us and talked to us about it, who has emailed us and contacted us asking questions and given us suggestions on who they'd like to see on the show. We really, truly appreciate it. Keep doing that. When you see us out at games, keep coming up and saying hi. We love it. So thank you very much again. You can get the show on YouTube by putting Big East Rewind in the search bar or wherever you get your podcasts from. We have social media, everything you can put on Big East Rewind and you'll find us. And we ask you to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and hit that bell so you get notified. Okay? Thanks again for everything. Hopefully we get to do 100 more of these. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Special thanks to all you people listening and all those great people that have decided to share their stories with us too. So enjoy yourself, folks. Thank you.
All right.